right, guys, so I woke up this morning to the news that rapper Takeoff from the group Migos has been killed. He was killed last night in Houston. And I don't care if you don't listen to rap music, you don't know who this guy is. This story is important. Let's get into it. All right, so sort of sad news story today, without a doubt. So rapper Takeoff from the group Migos was fatally shot last night in a bowling alley in Houston, Texas. We don't know yet, not all the details are out yet. It was just basically released this morning that he had even died. Some are saying it's over a squabble over a dice game that was happening at this bowling alley at 2 a.m. He was shot at around 2:30 in the morning and is now dead. So we've had a woman take to the internet who stated that she was there and said this rapper Takeoff, who has been known to be semi-introverted, quiet, reclusive about details in his life, was just sitting minding his own business with his own group of friends when a squabble broke out. He had stood up during this altercation and was shot and was not responsible for this. According to this young woman's account, I don't know, but we will go with what we have so far, and she has substantiated that she was there. Regardless of what led to this death, let's talk about not only a pervasive culture of gun violence within the rap community and in black culture, but this problem that just continues to grow and fester and very few people are addressing. Luckily, we do have somebody who's addressing it. I'm gonna get to that video at the end of this. I think it's the most important message that so many young people need to hear, so we will have that at the end of this video. But this guy died senselessly. And we seem to have a really big issue with senseless violence in this country, and people are just desensitized to it. I mean, there are videos of this young man, 28 years old, his body on the internet, as people are huddled around it, trying to figure out if he's going to survive. And millions of views, people are just watching it and going, rest in peace, rest in peace. It happened to another one. We just expect these things to happen. And I'll be honest, I woke up and I read this story and I said, okay, another rapper dead due to gun violence. That's just what happens. And I had to sit and think and go, no, we have to address this. We have to talk about this. We talk about how politics is downstream of culture. And if there is a cultural problem that we need to address in today's day and age, it is the cultural problem of gun violence. And we can say that's particularly in the black community. And it seems to be a very clear problem within rap music, but it's a problem all across the board. Although we are going to address black culture and rap culture in this video today. And I think this tweet from the Houston mayor, who of course is in the city that this happened in, perfectly expresses a problem. Too many young men of color are killing each other, resolving their disputes by pulling their guns and shooting one another regardless of fame or fortune. Crazy. And in a few seconds, a life is gone. Families and friends are left grieving. Now, Takeoff is huge, massively famous, part of this group Migos, a millionaire, known very well for his rap music and his place within this group, and he has died. It doesn't matter how much fame, fortune you garner, how much success, as long as you entrench yourself in an environment like this that is conducive to you losing your life over a trivial matter, it is going and possibly going to happen. And when we think about this problem, particularly with rappers, I mean, I made a list this morning of people that I could think of off the top of my head who are rappers that have died, I don't know, within the past 5 years. You got Takeoff, who died last night. Pop Smoke, fatally shot. PNB Rock, fatally shot here in Los Angeles, not even, a few months ago, because he posted on Instagram where he was and somebody rolled up, wanted to rob him, and shot him dead in front of his girlfriend and her baby. Nipsey Hussle, shot dead. Young Dolph, shot dead. XXX, shot dead. And I don't care if you don't like him or what he stands for or what he's done in the past, which is horrific. Shot dead, part of the rap community. Meg Thee Stallion, who is still alive, but shot by another rapper in her foot. Not that long ago at all. So you look at every other genre of music, you don't see artists being shot dead just in the street senselessly or in bowling alleys at 2:30 in the morning. It's happening within rap music. And I know this leads a lot of people to hop and say, well, the music is the problem. This is the root of it. But there are so many people all across the United States who are listening to rap music and not going out and senselessly killing people, not starting to do drugs or engage in prostitution or all these different things, and they're listening to rap music. But clearly there's a correlation there. But there's also culture. And it seems to be within black culture that it is incentivized to engage in this activity. Not all of black culture, but in a subset of it, it is expressed that you should engage in this sort of activity, and this is what makes you a successful person. This is what makes you look hard. This is what gains you success within the rap community. I can tell you how many young black children, both men and women, boys and girls, say, I want to be a rapper when I grow up. And do you know what these people are rapping about? They're rapping about gangbanging, about sleeping around and being promiscuous, about drug abuse. And they're not rapping about those stories from nowhere, pulling them out of thin air. This is stuff that they've often engaged in. So as a young person going, I want to be that and I want to do that, what do you think you need to do in order to gain credentials in being a rapper? You have to engage in that sort of activity. You have to surround yourself with people who are engaged in that sort of activity, at the very least. You got to surround yourself with people who know the community, who are entrenched in it, who can put you on the stepping stones to get successful there. So that's exactly what's happening here. And as I said before, it doesn't seem like Takeoff was invested in the turmoil or the squabble that led to his death. But what environment are you in that needs to be changed in order for something to be done about this? And how desensitized are we as a society to read a story like that and go, just another rapper, which is our experiences that both Taylor and I had this morning, and just worked our way through to say, why am I feeling like this?
Yeah, that was, we were talking about this right before recording, and however you slice it, wherever you attribute the root cause of the issue, the evidence is overwhelming that there is an issue here. Mm-hmm. But what really struck me this time was realizing that am I part of the problem by having that attitude of, I see this headline this morning and I'm more likely to just scroll right past it, or just say, oh well, that's just par for the course for this community, right. Instead of being arrested by the fact that, hey, there's suffering, there's a pattern of suffering in this community, a pattern of death, and if I believe these people are made in the image of God, their lives matter and have value, why am I just okay to scroll past? And I had to, I told Amala, in Christian terms, we use the word convicted, or I felt guilty in a sense, when she came in and wanted to say, hey, and wanted to talk about this issue, because I, was like, oh, is this the best angle for today's show? And this is the right story to cover? Is it going to be enough compelling of a headline? And my social media brain goes off, because I know on social media it's easy to run past these things. But I'm like, wait a second, where's that coming from in me that I'm just ready to I blow past this human suffering and death just because it's not the right media headline. And we're always so quick to criticize the media and say, oh, they don't cover this properly, they don't make a big deal. But I don't know, it just struck me different today.
Yeah, it just needs to be talked about. I mean, when you have somebody who has managed to be this successful, millions of dollars, nationwide, known for the music and the art, I view it as art, some of you might not, that he has created and put out to the world, it's just disgusting to see a life taken over nothing. Over seemingly nothing. And to think that this is what's happening in our major cities every single day. Every single day. And this gets headlines because he's famous, of course, but every single day you have young people, and particularly young black men, dealing with this exact fate being brought upon them over nothingness, over something that is instituted and pushed forward by culture. And not a great culture. And you can say that is racist or whatever. It is not good culture. You need two parents in the household. You need parents reading to their kids. You need parents emphasizing the importance of education. And you need a role model or a parent or a teacher or somebody to look you in the face and say, you were born on this earth and you have a choice. You're going to hit a fork in the road where you can go and do the gangbanging and the drug abuse and the prostitution and all these different things. Or you can say, no, I'm going to do something for me and for my future and for the future of the world, really, in a positive sense. And that's the route I'm going to take. And, I meet so many kids, I met so many kids when I was working with police officers in South Central who were living in this neighborhood known as Watts. We all know it to be a pretty dangerous neighborhood in LA. And these are bright children, dedicated to their education, getting full ride scholarships to out-of-state universities and colleges and pursuing that. And you hear them and you talk to them and they go, I'm going to go get successful and I'm going to come right back here. And I'm going to fix this, and I'm going to put my money back, or I'm going to invest it back in the community, or I'm going to buy a house here. And that's great, and I get the sentiment there. And I do think that if you truly want to make a change in your community, it does start with resources. It does start with having these conversations with children. And if you're somebody who managed to get out of it, become successful, I do think there's a vested interest in coming back and helping people in whatever way that you can. But have a degree of separation. You need to realize the hardships that you faced in your life are hardships that most people should not have to go through. And how do you separate yourselves from falling right back into that? You see rappers who come out of Watts or Compton and South Central, and they become wildly popular. And then boom, they're right back in the neighborhood, driving around in their really nice cars, gangbanging again, hanging out with their old friends. Even though they've managed to be successful, even though they have a chance in their life to separate themselves, they don't separate themselves. And I wonder if that's exactly what happened here with Takeoff. It certainly happened with the other list of rappers who have seen their lives ended this way. Now, I want to get to this message from Dion Sanders. Like I said, most important part of the video is what this man has to say to his group, a Jackson State football team. Here we go.
Tired of the consistency of people that are influential to you are leaving us consistently. That's our rappers. Takeoff was murdered in a dice game in Houston, where we're going. So that eliminates all y'all leaving that hotel, because it ain't happening.
You hear that? A father figure right there. That eliminates all y'all leaving the hotel. You are not going out. You are not going to go party. We're here to visit, to do our job. We're here to visit, to play our game, and to train. That's what you're going to do.
Until I give you further notice. So whatever her name is, whoever she is, parents, everybody, they're going to come to the hotel to visit you because y'all ain't leaving. Sooner or later, we got to start changing our addresses, guys. That's an analogy to saying, I know we this, but we ain't that. We got to leave that behind that we once did. And that's what you guys are. Now you guys are Jackson State royalty. You ain't no, man. You're not whoever you were a year ago. You're not even who you're going to be a year from now, which is a blessing. But you can't continuously do the things you've always done and expect to get the results. It's going to have to be a change. All of us have gone through drastic changes. Have we, coaches? Have we, coaches? All of us are still evolving into what God has called us to be, and that's change. You cannot kick it with the same dudes you kicked it with.
Yep.
You cannot kick it with the multitude of women that you kick it with. You cannot associate in the same realms that you associate with.
And I want to talk about this because we can talk about it in the theoretical sense or what we're seeing, but there is actual data and evidence to prove that this is what's happening within Black culture, is this inability to separate yourselves from people who are doing you no good and are not contributing to your life. Roland Fryer, who used to be a Harvard professor, ended up going through a horrible political assassination of his career due to the things that he was coming out with in his studies, found that this is a particular problem within Black culture, that when young Black children started to work and be successful within academics at their school, they were widely less popular than they were before. He did this by going around to all the students in the school and asking them to name their 3 top best friends. And he found that Black students who were performing well academically were not on the list, whereas they would have been before. So you have young Black children who are going, I'm going to give myself a chance. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to try hard. And then all of a sudden they have no friends anymore. So what's the incentive to move forward? If your friends don't want you to be successful, your friends don't want you to do well in school, your friends want you to stick back with them, stay in the same environment that you've always been in, and even if you are successful, they want you to come back and hang with them the same way that you always have been. We need change. And it starts with having conversations like this. You know, we talk about representation on the show, and I question the value of representation, but I think in an instance like this representation is important. To hear a successful Black man like Dion Sanders stand in front of a group of students and say, you have a choice, I made that choice, look at me now, look at me talking to you, look at all the other coaches around you. He said, aren't I right, coaches? And all the coaches who are successful standing in that room nod along and said, yes, we made that choice as well. That's important to hear. That's important to hear. Because when your view of other Black men is rappers, who many of whom end up losing their lives in the very same environment that they in part worked really hard to separate from and deviate from. And you see them lose their lives and you go, I want to be that. I want to do that and just hope that I don't lose my life that way. What track are we setting you on?
You're going to have to change if you expect change. You can't do it. It's going to come to a time, they can talk about you, they can mock you, they can ridicule you, they can cuss you out, they can clown you, whatever they want. But you're going to have to separate sooner or later. You're going to have to disconnect. Sooner or later, you're going to have to.
Yep.
So get that in your spirit. I'm sad because it just seems like it's always us. But we want to say we matter. We want to say we keep it in 100, but it's always us.
Dude, everything he's saying is just, he's clearly not rehearsed in this at all, but everything he's saying is just perfect. Let them ridicule you. Let them speak down to you. You keep doing what you're doing because your individual choices matter. Your uniqueness matters, and you can contribute something to this world. I didn't want this video to be too long, but I have to tell this story. There was a story of a young girl growing up in Watts when I was doing ride-alongs with the police officers, and just came from a not great family, seemingly didn't have both parents in the household, was growing up around people who were gangbanging and engaging in prostitution and you know, just selling their bodies off, and ended up getting pregnant from a really young age. I believe like, 16, 17, went home to her mom to express, you know, I'm pregnant. This is what happened to me. And her mom laughed at her and said, "Good for you, thinking that you are going to make it out of this community. Good for you thinking that you are going to be better than me and do something different and see yourself outside of this neighborhood and be successful. I'm so glad to see you ended up right where I ended up." And that's the mentality with a lot of people. And when he says, let them ridicule you, let them talk down on you, but you make your own decisions and you separate yourself, that's one of the hardest decisions you will ever make in your life. But it's the most important thing you will ever do in your life. And if there's young people watching right now and you're like, oh, I don't relate to that situation. I'm not growing up in Watts. I'm not growing up in Compton. I'm not growing up in these areas. You can do this on small and large scales in your life. There will always be people who try to bring you down and tell you that what you're doing is not worth it and what you're doing is not good for you, or they want to keep you down on their lower level. Don't do it. Don't listen to them and keep pursuing, because you do have it. And in the beginning of this video, he makes an important phrase. He says, you guys are royalty. And how often do you hear that as a child? How often do you get to be told that, yeah, you do have value, or you at least have the choice to create value? So many children are lacking that perception. So many children are lacking that message. And to have somebody like Dion Sanders give it to them and say, this is the way I did it, here's the way you can do it, is very important. We'll close out his message here.
Now we lose another soldier to some bull junk that when we look back at it, the gentleman gonna say, dang, now his whole life changes. Because now he's incarcerated or murdered in a consequence of what transpired. Because you know how the game is played.
Yep.
And I don't want y'all playing that foolish game, because y'all are valuable to your families, friends, loved ones, and you're valuable to us. All right, let's think about that. Let's pray for the families. Ain't no.
And see, I think that's gonna stick with those people. And if it doesn't, my goodness, like what wasted wisdom you just heard in the last 2 minutes. If that does not stick with you and make you have a different outlook on life and what you're capable of, I don't know what does. And he's not running away from the facts. He says it is always us. And that is true. It is true. I mean, statistically it's true, but you can just see it with your own eyes. You can feel it. It is always black men, for the most part. I mean, statistically, we're talking vast majority of gun homicides, and it doesn't have to be that way. And it's going to be a long road to get out of this, and that might have been part of my desensitization in looking at this story, is that it's going to happen again. We literally just had PNB Rock die in the Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in Los Angeles for just posting his location on Instagram. And it's unfortunate to say that, yes, this is going to happen again, but you hope that every single time that it does, people start to wake up and realize that's not the route that I want to take, and that's not what I want to be listening to. And unfortunately, these messages are not uplifted within our society, and they need to be. This is what people should be talking about when a story like this happens, because you have options. And that's as far as I'm going to go on this story. Again, you might not listen to rap music. I do. I love rap music, and I'm not a violent person. I'm not engaging in this sort of activity. So it clearly points to me that there's something outside of the messages in this music, although I don't think they're particularly helpful, that is causing problems like this. So you might not care about rap music or rap culture or pop culture even, but it still is important, and it still has a direct effect on you and a direct impact on you, your society, your community, your family, and everything that's happening around you. And we hope to solve these problems. That's all for today, guys. Thanks.